The salt spray stings your eyes, a familiar, unwelcome kiss from the churning grey sea. You blink, tasting brine and something else of fear. It's a metallic tang on your tongue, a cold knot in your gut that tightens with every lurch of the longship. Hewn wood of the gunwale, knuckles white, the coarse fibres digging into your palm. Around you, chanting of the oarsman, is a low thrum, a primal pulse that vibrates through the very bones of the ship, and through you, glory of plunder, of the gods watching over them. You, however, hear only the gnashing teeth of the waves and the rising tide of dread. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, stale ale, washed bodies of your shield brothers. It's a smell you've grown accustomed to. The olfactory signature of a raiding party seems more potent, more suffocating. The sky overhead is a bruised, sullen purple, threatening rain, or perhaps something worse. Whips your hair across your face, strands plastered to your skin, and carries with it the faint, almost imperceptible scent of smoke from land. Their land. Beside you, Ragnar, his beard a tangled mass of black and grey. His eyes, the colour of a stormy sea, are fixed on the distant horizon. He's a mountain of a man, scarred and weathered, his presence a bulwark against the encroaching panic. He claps you on the shoulder, reassuring and a stark reminder of the brute force that lies dormant within each of you. Almost there, he rumbles, his voice deep and gravelly. The Saxon dogs sleep soundly, dreaming of their fat sheep and soft beds. You manage a nod, forcing a semblance of calm onto your features. You are Frey, son of Jorn clan. You have weathered storms, faced down berserkers, and tasted the blood of your enemies. To another raid, another chance to prove your worth, to bring back riches and honor to your village. Yet, this time, thrill of anticipation is overshadowed by a gnawing unease. The whispers have been growing louder, tales of a mighty fortress, unlike any they've encountered before, of a ferocity that borders on the unnatural. The long ship, sea serpent, through the waves with a mournful groan of timber, the rhythmic dip and pull of the oars is hypnotic, of muscle and wood. You watch the oarsmen, their backs slick with sweat, their faces set in grim determination. The heart of the ship, the engine that drives them towards their destiny. You are part of that engine, a cog in the war machine. The weight of that responsibility feels heavier than usual. Leif, younger warrior, with a shock of red hair and a nervous twitch in his eye, shifts his weight beside you. He's barely a man, and unlined, a stark contrast to the hardened visages of the older warriors. Clutches his spear as if it were a lifeline, his knuckles white. Do you think the stories are true, Frey? He whispers, barely audible above the roar of the sea, about the shields that never break, men who fight without fear. You turn to him, your gaze steady. You've seen fear in the eyes of men who have faced death 100 times. You've seen it in yourself. Fear is a natural thing, primal instinct that keeps you alive. But the whispers spoke of something else, a cold, unyielding courage that defied explanation. You say, trying to inject a confidence you don't entirely feel into your voice. Fear is a weakness. That weakness. Ragnar overhears the exchange and lets out a low chuckle. The boy asks sensible questions, Frey, who charge headlong into the wolf's den without a thought. He looks at Leif, his expression softening slightly. The Saxons are men like us. They bleed, they fear, they die. Their courage is born of their king, their gods, and the steel in their hands. We have the same and more. He taps the pommel of his axe, a wickedly curved blade that has tasted much blood. Remember who we are, Leif. We are the Raven's children. We do not cower. As if summoned by your unspoken thoughts, a cry goes up from the prow. Land ho! The word, simple yet electric. The ship. The oarsman's pace quickens, their grunts of exertion turning into guttural war cries. The chant swells, deafening roar that seems to shake the very heavens. You can feel it now, presence on the wind, the smell of damp earth, of pine trees, and yes, the acrid scent of smoke, stronger now, undeniable. The coastline appears through the mist, a dark, forbidding line against the bruised sky. The jagged silhouette of a fortified settlement, its wooden palisades stark against the backdrop of rolling hills. From within its walls, a taunting invitation. This is Lindisfarne, the holy island, the jewel in the Saxon crown. It will be ours. Ragnar turns to you, his eyes burning with a fierce intensity. The gods favor us, Frey. How the smoke rises, a beacon to guide us to our bounty. He grins, a flash of white teeth against his weathered skin. Are you ready? For the glory of Odin. You grip your axe, the familiar weight of it comforting in your hand. Its edge is keen, its surface etched with runes of protection and strength. You run your thumb over the cool metal, feeling the latent power within it. Or at least you will be. The fear is still there, a cold ember in your gut. It's being fanned by a different flame, the fire of battle, the hunger for victory. Longship scrapes against a shingle beach, a jarring sound that sends a jolt through your body. The water here is shallower than the open sea, its surface a rippling mirror reflecting the grim faces of your companions. The chanting stops, tense silence, broken only by the lapping of waves and the nervous snorting of horses on the shore. Ragnar leaps from the ship, sinking into the wet sand. He roars a challenge, a primal sound that echoes across the desolate landscape. For the Raven, the war cry is taken up by the rest of the crew, sound that crashes against the silent shores of Lindisfarne. You follow Ragnar, your own roar tearing from your throat, up tension. The sand is cold beneath your feet, clinging to your leather boots, thick with the smell of seaweed and the sharp, metallic tang of anticipation. You see them now, figures emerging from the trees, shirts glinting in the dim light. They are few, their faces a mixture of surprise and defiance. Monks, perhaps. Simple villagers, not the hardened warriors you had feared. A flicker of relief washes over you, quickly extinguished by Ragnar's sharp command.
To the gate! Break it down!
You surge forward, your shield held high. The other warriors flank you, a relentless tide of steel and fury. The monks on the shore scatter, robes a stark contrast to the dark hues of your own attire. Some fall to their knees, their hands raised in prayer. Turn and flee towards the settlement. You reach the wooden gate, a sturdy barrier of thick timbers bound with iron. Ragnar brings his axe down with a deafening crash, splintering the wood. You join him, your own blows raining down, the impact jarring your arm. The gate groans, splinters flying, the sound of its destruction a sweet music to your ears. With a final, the gate splinters inward, revealing the inner courtyard of the monastery. It is a scene of quiet contemplation, sacred peace, now shattered by your arrival. Stone buildings, a soaring church, and manicured gardens lie before you. Glow of the storm-laden sky. And then you see them. Not monks, not villagers. They stand in formation, a line of heavily armed men, their shields locked, their spears bristling. Their armor is finer than anything you've seen before, gleams even in this dim light. Their faces are grim, unyielding, their eyes fixed on you with a cold, unwavering resolve. Soft Saxon dogs Ragnar had spoken of, These are warriors. A chill, colder than the sea spray, runs down your spine. This is not the easy plunder you had anticipated. This is a battle. And the whispers you realize with a sickening certainty. The air crackles with unspoken tension, the silence before the storm. Your heart pounds in your chest, drumbeat against the rhythmic roar of the waves. You are Frey, son of Jorn, and you are about to face something new. On this holy island, you raise your axe, the weight of it suddenly feeling both familiar and terrifyingly insufficient. Saxon warrior, a giant of a man with a grim, bearded face and eyes like chips of ice, meets your gaze. The raid has begun. A mountain of muscle clad in mail and leather grunts, a sound like stones grinding. His shield, with a rampant lion, is a stark white against the grey sky. His spear, tipped with wickedly sharp iron, is levelled at your chest. Smell the sweat and fear on him, even through the brine and the metallic tang of your own dread. His eyes, indeed, chips of ice, reflecting the grim determination of men fighting for their homes, their gods, their very lives. The easy plunder Ragnar boasted of, the scattering of panicked farmers and easily broken guards. This is the shield wall, the heart of the island's defense. Your own shield, rough, hewn wood-bound with iron, feels flimsy, toy against the solid edifice before you. Your axe, wolf's tooth, as your father called it, feels heavy, unbalanced. You grip it tighter, your knuckles white. The berserker rage, the bloodlust that usually surged through you like a tidal wave, mere ripple choked by the sheer, unyielding presence of these warriors. You are Frey, son of Jorn, and for the first time, the wisdom of this raid, the bravado that led you here, the whispers you dismissed as old wives' tales, fierce protectors now echo in your mind with chilling clarity. Yield, Northmen! The giant bellows gravelly rumble. Your raid ends here. You don't understand all his words, but the meaning is clear. Absolute certainty of command. It's not a plea, not a threat, but a statement of fact. Your blood thrums, not with fury, calculated assessment. This man is a veteran. His stance is balanced, his grip firm. He knows how to wield that spear, that shield to its fullest. Beside you, Torvin, his usually jovial face contorted with grim purpose, grunts, who speaks of surrender. Frey, tell him to choke on his own words. Torvin, a bear of a man himself, his beard braided with silver rings, is usually the first to rush into the fray, his roar a prelude to carnage. But even he seems to sense the gravity of this moment. You spit, Defiance House, surrender, to a man who speaks in riddles. Your own voice is rough, strained. You try to inject a bravado you don't feel, a swagger you haven't earned. We are the sons of Odin! We have come for glory, not the giant's lip curls. He doesn't speak again, but his eyes harden. The men behind him shift, their shields tightening, their spears inching forward. You can see the glint of steel beneath their tunics, the leather straps of their graves. They are not mere farmers with pitchforks. They are trained soldiers. Frey, their formation is tight. Torvin murmurs, his breath hot on your ear. We cannot break it with a frontal assault. We need to spread them out, find a weakness. You nod, your gaze sweeping across the Saxon line. They are indeed a solid wall, like the scales of a dragon. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, a mix of damp earth and scattered stones, is thick with the scent of wet wool, oiled leather, and the faint of incense drifting from the monastery buildings behind them. The monastery itself, cluster of stone structures topped with steep tiled roof, seems to radiate an aura of quiet strength, congruous contrast to the violence about to unfold. The Saxon giant makes the first move. With a guttural cry, he lunges. Luff. You instinctively raise your shield, the impact jarring your arm to the bone. The wood groans, splinters flying. A spearhead bites deep, but the shield holds, its iron rim deflecting the worst of the force. You feel the vibration travel up your arm. Chanel, you roar, pushing your shield forward, attempting to unbalance him. He is too heavy, too well-rooted. His immense strength, a physical force that threatens to crush you. You stumble, your feet slipping on the damp ground. Torvin, seeing your struggle, surges forward. His own axe raised, he aims for the giant's exposed flank, but another Saxon warrior, younger, shock of red hair, intercepts him, his sword a silver arc. The clang of steel on steel rings out, a sharp that cuts through the roar of the waves. You are momentarily free, but the giant is already recovering, his eyes burning with renewed fury. He roars, a challenge that echoes across the beach. He abandons his spear and draws a short, broad sword, its edge gleaming wickedly. He advances, his movements surprisingly agile for his size. You parry his first swing, sending a jolt up your arm. The air is filled with the grunts of exertion, the clash of weapons, the shouts of men. Primal dance. You see Ragnar, a whirlwind of fury, hacking through a pair of Saxons near the water's edge. Leif, his face a mask of concentration, duels with a larger warrior, their swords singing a deadly song. Your axe bites into the giant's shield, a deep furrow. He retaliates, his sword aiming for your head. You duck, the wind of the blade whistling past your ear. Hot metal fills your nostrils. You feel a searing pain on your left arm as his sword grazes your mail wound. Hold the line. A voice booms from the Saxon ranks. It's not the giant, but someone further back. A helmet adorned with a raven's feather. He is clearly in command. His voice carries an authority that silences the immediate din of battle around him, a command that seems to galvanize his men with a sickening lurch that this isn't a disorganized mob. This is an organized defense led by a seasoned commander. Initial assessment of soft Saxon dogs was not just wrong, it was dangerously foolish. These men are not fighting for plunder, for their faith, their sanctuary. The giant presses his attack, his sword a relentless force. You are forced to retreat. Agonizing step, your shield arm screaming in protest. You see Torvin wrestling with his opponent, both men locked in a brutal embrace, swords flashing. Torvin manages to shove his foe back, but the red-haired warrior is quick, recovering his balance and lunging again. To your left, a voice shouts. It's Astrid, your shield sister, her usually bright eyes now narrowed with fierce determination. She's fighting with a short, curved sword and a small buckler, her movements economical and deadly. She's engaged with two Saxons herself, deflecting blows while her sword finds openings. You turn, time to see the giant's sword sweeping towards your exposed side. Astrid's warning gives you the split second you need, deflecting the blow with a shower of sparks. The impact is immense, jarring you to your knees. The giant, seeing his chance, raises his sword for a killing blow. But before he can strike, a blur of motion erupts from the side. It's Gunnar, a younger warrior, swift and agile, who throws himself at the giant, his own axe a silver arc. Gunnar is not as strong as the giant, faster, more unpredictable. He latches onto the giant's shield arm, distracting him. This momentary reprieve is all you need. You scramble to your feet, your heart hammering against your ribs. You see an opening, the giant's defense as he grapples with Gunnar. With a roar that is more desperation than true fury, you surge forward. High, you swing with all your might, not aiming for his shield, but for the exposed side of his leg. The axe bites deep. Giant bellows in pain, his leg buckling. He stumbles, his grip loosening on his sword. Gunnar, seizing the opportunity, his own blade into the giant's side. The giant falls, a thunderous crash, his body hitting the sand with a heavy thud. For a moment, stunned silence around you. The immediate threat is neutralized, but the battle rages on all around. Astrid dispatching one of her attackers, her face grim. Torvin has managed to disarm his opponent, fending off another with his shield. You stand over the fallen giant, breathing heavily. Brine is still on your tongue, but the metallic tang of fear has been replaced by the coppery scent of blood. Owen and the giants, you look at your hands, still gripping Wolf's tooth. They are shaking, not from exertion, the sheer terror and the grim reality of what you've just done. You have killed a man, a warrior. The whispers of this holy island are proving to be far more substantial than you could have imagined. The Saxon commander, with the raven feather, is now bellowing orders. He's moving his men, reinforcing the center of their line, but also drawing back some of his warriors from the flanks. He's not breaking, he's regrouping. He's a tactician. "Frey, we cannot hold this position." Torvin shouts, his voice strained. He's covered in sweat and blood, his mail shirt dark with it. Are still greater, and they fight with the fury of cornered wolves. Astrid nods, her sword dripping. Their holy place. They will not yield easily. You look at the monastery. The chanting, faint but persistent, still drifts on the wind. It's a stark contrast to the violence. You see monks' robed figures, some of them carrying crude weapons. The main line of warriors. They are not fighting, not yet, but their presence is a testament to the sanctity of this place. You call out, your voice hoarse. "What is our plan?" And Ragnar, his face streaked with dirt and blood, his axe dripping towards you. "The wall is too strong, Frey. We cannot break it here. We need to draw them out." He glances at the giant you felled. "You did well, Frey. But this is not the easy pickings we expected. This is a war." He looks towards the monastery, his eyes alight with a different kind of fire. "Treasure within those walls, Frey. Gold, silver, relics, but they also have something else. Something that draws them to defend it with such ferocity. We need to find out what it is." He claps you on the shoulder, of grim camaraderie. "Torvin, Astrid, gather the wounded. We will fall back to the longships, regroup. Frey, I will scout the monastery. We need to find a way in, a weakness. A cold dread settles in your stomach, scouting the monastery. Facing that shield wall, the thought of venturing into the heart of their defense, very sanctum they are so fiercely protecting, fills you with a primal fear. But Ragnar's words are firm, his gaze unwavering. "Frey, son of Jorn, and you have faced the giants of this island. Now you must face their gods, or whatever it is they hold so dear." Hefting Wolf's tooth again. The weight feels different now. It's not just a tool for plunder. It's a weapon of survival. Far from over, it has only just begun. You look back at the Saxon line, still holding firm, still a formidable obstacle. The sun is starting to dip towards the horizon, casting long shadows that twist and distort the battlefield into something even more menacing. He cries of the wounded, the clang of steel, the roar of the sea, a symphony of war. And you are a part of it, a reluctant but determined part. The holy island has revealed its true nature, and you are caught in its unforgiving embrace. The initial onslaught, but the true test of your mettle and your very soul is yet to come. The whispers, understand, were not just tales of riches, but warnings of a force far greater than you or Ragnar had ever anticipated. Your mail, a damp caress that mirrors the unease coiling in your gut. The sun, molten disk bleeding into the bruised twilight, paints the sky in hues of blood and ash. Before you, the Saxon shield wall, oak and iron, remains a testament to their stubborn defiance. Each man stands rooted, a living bulwark against the tide of your fury. You can almost taste the grit of the earth, mingled with the coppery tang of spilled blood and the salt spray whipped up by the restless sea. With the lament of the wounded, a mournful call chorus underscored by the incessant clang of steel on steel. Ragnar's words, spoken with the calm authority of a seasoned chieftain, echo in your mind like a prophecy of doom. Holy Island has revealed its true nature, Frey. We face not mere monks, but warriors of Odin. The whispers were warnings. Now, scout their sanctum. Your hand tightens on the worn leather grip of Wolf's tooth. The familiar weight, once a comfort, now feels like a burden, a constant reminder of the grim task ahead. The fear is a cold, creeping thing, slithering through your veins. Turn back to rejoin the fray where the enemy is known, where the roar of battle drowns out the whispers of apprehension. Son of Brunvjorn, and the shame of retreat is a wound deeper than any Saxon blade could inflict. You glance at Ragnar, a study in grim resolve, his gaze fixed on the distant, imposing structure that crowns the island's highest point. It is there, stone walls, that the heart of this island's defense lies. Are you certain of this, Ragnar? You ask, your voice rough, tremor you fight to control, to go alone into their midst. Ragnar turns, his blue eyes, with the fire of battle, now hold a steely glint. The lion does not send his cubs into the den of the wolf, Frey. This is a task for a keen eye and a silent foot, not a charging berserker. Jorn would be proud. He claps a heavy hand on your shoulder, the force of it momentarily stealing your breath. Take Torvin with you. He knows the ways of the land, even if his tongue is as blunt as a club bine. Torvin, a hulking brute with a beard the colour of dried blood, grunts in agreement, his scarred face impassive. He shifts his weight, his hand resting on the hilt of his axe, steel gleaming dully in the fading light. He is a silent shadow, a man of few words, but immense strength, and his presence, while offering measure of reassurance, does little to quell the gnawing dread. You nod a curt, decisive movement. You turn your back on the ongoing skirmish, the sounds of battle receding behind you as you and Torvin begin your ascent. Ground beneath your feet is uneven, a treacherous mix of mud, loose stones, and the scattered debris of conflict. Grows colder as you climb, the wind biting at your exposed skin, carrying with it the faint, seen scent of incense and damp earth. The island, once a mystical beacon, now feels like a cage, its beauty a deceptive veil over a dangerous heart. The silence here is more profound than the clamour of battle, a heavy, expectant quiet that seems to hold its breath. The terrain becomes steeper, more challenging. You scramble over moss-covered rocks, boots finding purchase with agonizing slowness. Torvin, with his brute strength, navigates the ascent with surprising agility, frame seeming to flow over the obstacles. You find yourself envying his unburdened mind, his apparent lack of apprehension. Is it true courage or simply a lack of imagination? You push the thought away. Your own focus must be absolute. Bend in the rocky path. The monastery comes into full view. It is a formidable structure that seems to absorb the last vestiges of daylight. Towers pierce the sky like skeletal fingers, and the walls appear solid, unyielding. A single, imposing gatehouse guards the main entrance. Wooden doors reinforced with iron bands. You can see figures moving on the ramparts, silhouetted against the darkening sky, full vigilant. They are numerous, You mutter, your voice barely audible above the rising wind. Grunts, again, a sound of agreement. He points with his chin towards a narrow, overgrown path that veers off to the left, a thicket of gnarled hawthorn. There, the old goat track leads to the western wall. Less guarded, you consider his suggestion. The main gate is a death trap. This hidden path, however perilous, offers a chance. The track is barely a path, more a suggestion of passage through tangled undergrowth. Thorns snag at your mail, leather straps, and the branches whip against your face. The air here is heavy with the scent of damp leaves and decaying wood. Hear the rustling of unseen creatures in the undergrowth, their movements adding to your growing unease. Silently as you can, your senses heightened, straining to catch any sound that might betray your presence. Every snapping twig of leaves sends a jolt of adrenaline through you. You reach the western wall. It is lower here, and the stone is weathered. A section has crumbled, creating a rough, uneven climb. This is your chance. You signal to Torvin, his eyes glinting with a grim understanding. I will go first. You whisper, your voice tight with anticipation. Secure the path. You begin to climb, your muscles straining with the effort. The stones are slick with moss, offering little purchase. You pull yourself up, your arms burning, your breath coming in ragged gasps. The height is dizzying, below a black abyss. You can feel the rough texture of the stone against your skin, the chill of the ancient mortar. You reach the top, your body aching, and heave yourself over the parapet, landing with a soft thud on the other side. Behind you, his ascent swift and powerful, he lands beside you, his heavy breathing the only sound in the immediate vicinity. You are within the monastery walls. The air here is different, cooler, tinged with the scent of beeswax and something floral. Speaks of a life far removed from the brutal realities of the battlefield. You crouch low, peering through the gloom. Vast, paved with uneven flagstones. Shadows dance and wreathe in the faint moonlight, transforming familiar shapes into menacing figures. You can see the outlines of smaller buildings surrounding a larger structure, the main chapel, perhaps. The silence is unnerving by the distant roar of the sea and the mournful cry of a seabird. Where do we go? Torvin hisses, his voice a low rumble. Scan the courtyard, your eyes darting from shadow to shadow. You recall the legends, the tales of the sacred relics said to be hidden within this holy place. Ragnar believes the heart of their resistance lies here, not on the battlements, hallowed walls. The chapel, you whisper, pointing towards the largest building, where they will keep their most sacred things, their power. You move across the courtyard, your steps measured, deliberate. The flagstones are uneven, some loose, threatening to betray your presence with a clatter. You press yourselves against the cold stone walls, the deepest shadows, your senses on high alert. You can feel the immense weight of the silence, the pressure of being deep within enemy territory, unseen but potentially surrounded. As you approach the chapel, you hear it, a faint chanting, a low, resonant hum that seems to vibrate through the very stones. It grows louder as you draw nearer, unsettling sound. You reach the chapel doors, massive wooden slabs bound with iron. They are slightly ajar, a sliver of dim light escaping into the courtyard. You exchange a look with Torvin. His eyes are wide, something akin to awe in their depths. You nod, and together you push the doors open. The sight that greets you steals your breath. The interior is vast, flickering candlelight that casts dancing shadows on the stone walls. The air is thick with the cloying scent of incense. Close and powerful fills the space. Monks, clad in dark, hooded robes, stand in a semicircle before an altar, rising in a harmonious, yet chilling, prayer. They do not appear to be armed, but their stillness, their unwavering focus, than any drawn sword. On the altar, bathed in the warm glow of the candles, rests a large, ornate chest with scenes of saints and martyrs. It is made of dark wood, inlaid with gold and precious stones, radiate an aura of power, of ancient reverence. This must be it. This must be what they are protecting. You signal to Torvin. You will approach the chest while he keeps watch at the doors. He nods, melting back into the shadows near the entrance. His large frame a reassuring presence. You begin to move, your footsteps unnervingly loud on the stone floor, yet the chanting continues, or perhaps indifferent to your presence. You are a ghost in this sacred space, an intruder in a world of faith and ritual. The chest is cold to the touch, its surface smooth and unyielding. You can see the intricate details of the carvings, artistry that speaks of a devotion you cannot comprehend. Your fingers trace the lines of a carved angel, its wings spread in eternal flight. What is it? You whisper, your voice barely a breath against the overwhelming sound of the chanting. The chest for a latch or a lock, but find none. The lid is a single, seamless piece of wood. Frustration begins to prickle at you. Open it, eat. Is it sealed by some divine enchantment? Then you notice it. A small seam running along the top edge of the chest. It's a subtle indentation, easily missed. Your heart leaps. Pry it open with your fingers, but it's no use. The wood is too solid, too unyielding. You glance at Torvin, subtle nod, understanding your predicament. He draws his axe not to strike, but to use the blunt edge of the haft towards you, his massive form casting a long shadow. As Torvin approaches, one of the monks, man with a face like a dried apple, turns his head. His eyes, bright and sharp despite his age, fix on you. Falters, a discordant note entering the harmonious chorus. The old monk's lips move, and a single word, clear and resonant, howled. The chanting stops. All eyes turn towards you, towards the altar, guests in their sacred space. The candles flicker, their flames seeming to shrink, as if in fear. The silence that descends is absolute, profound, and terrifying. You are exposed. The hunt has become the hunted. The carefully orchestrated infiltration has dissolved into a stark, undeniable confrontation. You are no longer a scout. You are a trespasser, who have stood silent and unmoving moments before are now regarding you with a chilling intensity that speaks of a power far older and perhaps far more dangerous, the warriors on the beach. The true nature of this island's defense has just revealed itself, and it is not made of steel and shield, made of something far more ancient, far more resolute. The air crackles with an unseen energy, and you feel a primal fear grip you. Whispers of things beyond the reach of steel and battle lust. The single word, halt, hangs in the air, a physical barrier between you and whatever comes next. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden silence. The chanting, moments ago a low, guttural rumble that vibrated through the very stones of this forgotten temple. Every pair of eyes in this cavernous space is fixed upon you, a sea of upturned faces, each a mask of stoic, unreadable intensity. Once a comforting, if dim, beacon, now seems to cower, shrinking as if in fear of the stillness you've imposed. You are no longer Frey, the scout, the shadow creeping through the enemy's heart. You are Frey, the trespasser, the intruder, the one who dared to shatter their sacred ritual. Felt earlier, the damp seeping through your mail has intensified. It's no longer just the dampness of the island air, it's the icy grip of fear, a primal dread that coils in your gut and whispers of things far older and more potent than the warriors you've faced on the beaches. Is not the passive obedience of men caught unawares, it's the coiled tension of predators, unwavering focus of those who understand the true nature of this island's defenses. And that nature, you now realize with a sickening lurch, is not forged from iron and keen blades alone. It is something deeper, woven into the very fabric of this place, something that hums with an unseen energy that makes the hairs on your arms prickle. The hilt of your Sikhs, the familiar weight a small comfort, but, with a certainty that chills you to the bone. This the fight your Sikhs was made for. These men, clad in simple, homespun tunics and adorned with symbols you don't recognize, possess an aura of power that transcends mere physical strength. Their eyes, those dark, unblinking pools, seem to pierce through your mail, your flesh, and into the very core of your being. They do not see a Viking warrior, a raider from the north. They see something else, clearly been waiting for, or perhaps something they have been guarding against. The old monk, who spoke the single, arresting word, steps forward. He is frail, his body stooped with age, his face a roadmap of wrinkles. Yet, there is an unexpected strength, a quiet authority that commands the attention of every man present. He raises a gnarled hand, but in a gesture that seems to encompass the entire space, the flickering lights, the hushed watchers, and you in their midst. His gaze meets yours, and in its depths you see not anger, not fear, but a profound, ancient sorrow. Speaks of centuries of vigilance. You have trespassed. His voice is a dry rustle, like leaves skittering across stone, that belays its apparent fragility. You have disturbed the slumber of the deep. Your mind races, trying to grasp the meaning behind his words. Slumber of the deep, what deep? This is a temple, a place of worship, not some watery abyss. In the air, the palpable sense of ancient power suggests something more than mere religious fervor. You recall the whispers of the local fisherman, the hushed tales of the isles, of the spirits that guarded its shores, as superstitious ramblings, the fear-mongering of simple folk, now standing in this silent, charged atmosphere, seems so fanciful. We sought no offense, you reply, your voice surprisingly steady. Your throat feels tight and dry. You force yourself to meet the monk's gaze, to project an image of calm resolve. Your insides churn with a potent cocktail of fear and adrenaline. We are men of the sea seeking shelter from the storm. Disrespect to your gods or your place of worship. It's a half-truth, a carefully constructed lie. Buy you time might diffuse this volatile situation. A low murmur ripples through the assembled men. Wait, their hands moving to the simple wooden staffs they carry. Others remain utterly still, their gazes unwavering. The monk, however, does not react to your words. He simply inclines his head, a subtle acknowledgement of your statement. Continue to hold that ancient sorrow, shelter from the storm. He repeats the words laced with a subtle irony. Seek shelter from is but a whisper compared to the tempest that stirs within these stones. He gestures to the altar, hewn block of dark stone, etched with symbols that seem to wreathe in the flickering light. You came seeking plunder, warrior. You came seeking to sow chaos, but you have found something far older, does not yield to the sword. The accusation stings, but you can't not deny the truth in his words. Your raid, your mission, was about plunder, about the glory of battle, about the spoils of victory. You are a Viking, and this is what you do. Reality of this place, the raw, untamed power that permeates it, has shifted your perspective. Village ripe for the taking, a collection of huts and frightened villagers. This is something else entirely. Warriors, you state, your voice gaining a touch of its usual gruffness. We understand strength. We understand power, what you possess. You take a step forward, your mail clanking softly against the stone floor. The movement is a calculated risk, challenge thrown down. You need to understand the nature of this threat to gauge its strength before you can formulate any kind of plan. Eyes narrow, and for the first time a flicker of something akin to warning crosses his face. Always in the swing of an axe, warrior. Power is not always in the roar of a war cry. Some power lies in patience, stillness, in the deep understanding of the currents that flow beneath the surface of the world. He turns, sweeping across the faces of his followers. These men, he continues, ringing with a newfound authority that silences the murmurs, are the guardians. They have kept watch for generations. When the ancient balance must be restored. Balance. The word echoes in your mind, resonating with a strange familiarity. You've heard tales from the Skalds, stories of the gods, of the balance between light and darkness. But these are not the gods of Asgard. These are something older, something tied to this island, beneath your feet. Suddenly, one of the men closest to you, a broad-shouldered individual with a thick, braided beard, he carries no weapon, only his bare hands, but the air around him seems to thicken, to grow heavy. His eyes dark and intense. Onto yours, he opens his mouth, and instead of a roar of defiance, a low, resonant hum emerges, a single, vibrates in your very bones. It's not a sound you can place, not a human sound. It's deeper, more resonant, itself groaning. You flinch instinctively, your hand tightening on your seeks. The hum intensifies, a strange pressure building behind your eyes, a disorienting dizziness. The candlelight flickers wildly, shadows that seem to writhe and contort into menacing shapes. The air grows colder, the dampness seeping even into your mail. What is this? You demand, your voice strained. What sorcery is this? The monk watches impassively, his sorrowful gaze fixed on the unfolding events. It is not sorcery, warrior. It is the song of the deep. It is the awakening. The man with the humming voice continues his low drone, and you feel a strange pull, a sensation of being drawn into the very stone of the temple. Your vision blurs, the edges of the cavern seeming to warp and stretch. Far more profound than the fear of battle washes over you. This is not a fight you can win with steel. For your very being, a struggle against an unseen force that seeks to consume you. You feel a sudden, as if an invisible hand is squeezing your skull. The hum intensifies, now joined by a low, pulsing thrum that seems to emanate from the altar. The symbols on the stone begin to glow with a faint, phosphorescent light, casting an eerie green hue over the scene. Your warriors, those who followed you into this place, are reacting. Jorn, the ever boisterous, lets out a guttural cry, his hand flying to his axe. Ragnar, ever the pragmatist, is already scanning the exits, narrowed in calculation, but their reactions, their readiness for physical combat, seem utterly inadequate here. Fish thrashing on dry land, their instincts honed for a world that no longer exists in this moment. Jorn roars, his voice a desperate plea. This place is cursed! But escape feels impossible, become a deafening roar in your ears, the pressure in your head unbearable. You feel your own strength draining away. faltering. It's as if the very essence of this place is drawing the life force out of you, absorbing you into its ancient power. However, remains the eye of this gathering storm. He raises his hands again, and the humming subsides slightly, the pressure in your head easing, though the dizziness persists. The glowing symbols on the altar dim. Cold begins to recede, replaced by the familiar damp chill of the cavern. You are not yet ready, the monk says, calm, almost gentle. The awakening is not for you, not in this form. You are a creature of the sun, of the storms, of Stiesel. This power, this is something else. He looks directly at you, a flicker of something that might be pity in his ancient eyes. You have seen a glimpse, warrior, of what lies beneath. You have disturbed the slumber, but you are not yet consumed. You have a choice. You have a choice. What choice could there be? You are trapped, surrounded by men who command forces you cannot comprehend. Yet, the monk's words, easing of the overwhelming pressure, offer a sliver of hope. What choice? You manage to croak out, your voice hoarse. And you can flee, the monk says, his gaze unwavering. You can turn your back on what you have witnessed and try to forget. He pauses, his eyes sweeping over your mail, your weapons, the determined set of your jaw. You can learn. You can seek to understand. But know this, warrior, to seek understanding is to tread a dangerous path. The deep to look upon you, not as an intruder, but as a student. Suffer, fools. The implication hangs in the air, heavy and potent. Learn, understand. You are a warrior, action, not a scholar of ancient mysteries, but the memory of that overwhelming power. The feeling of being on the brink of annihilation has shaken you to your core. You cannot simply return to your ship and pretend this never happened. The world you thought you knew has just tilted on its axis. Jorn, recovering from his initial shock, steps forward, his axe held defensively. We have seen enough, he growls, his gaze fixed on the monk. This cursed place, Ragnar nods in agreement, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. He speaks truth, Frey. This is no place for us. We are warriors, not priests or sorcerers. But you hesitate. The monk's words have planted a seed of curiosity, a dangerous, intoxicating curiosity. What is this power? What lies beneath the surface? The very thought sends a shiver of anticipation through you, a thrill that momentarily eclipses the lingering fear. What do you mean? You ask, ignoring Jorn and Ragnar. Your gaze is fixed on the monk, a silent plea for more information. What is this awakening? The monk's lips curve into a faint, enigmatic smile. That, warrior, is a story for another time. Now know that the island remembers your intrusion. It has felt your presence, and it will remember. Go, if you must, that the currents you have stirred will continue to flow. But he turns away, his attention returning to the altar. The men around you remain watchful, their stillness unnerving, but the intense pressure has subsided. The air, still charged with an unseen energy, no longer feels like a tangible force seeking to crush you. You look at Bjorn, then at Ragnar. Their faces are a mixture of confusion and apprehension. They look to you for a decision, for a return to the familiar order of command. You say the words feeling strangely hollow. You turn your back on the altar, on the glowing symbols, on the silent guardians. But as you walk, you can feel the unseen energy still there, a silent hum in the background, a promise of something more. Survive this encounter, but with a certainty that chills you to the bone, that this island and the power it holds will haunt your dreams. The raid has been averted, but the true hunt, the hunt for knowledge, has just begun. A sinking feeling that this path will lead you far from the familiar shores of glory and plunder you never imagined. The storm outside may have passed, but the tempest within you has just begun to brew, a boss, and it has looked back. The salt spray stings your face, a familiar, yet now strangely alien, sensation. The rhythmic creak of the longship's timbers is a comforting sound, a stark contrast to the unsettling silence of the island's heart. His brow furrowed, rose with a ferocity that suggests he's trying to outrun shadows. Ragnar, his usual boisterous laughter absent, stares at the receding coastline, his knuckles white where they grip the oar. The raid as you'd planned it, a glorious display of strength, a testament to your prowess as a leader. Instead, it ended with a whispered command, a hasty retreat, and the lingering chill of something ancient and unknowable. You sit at the prow, the wind whipping your hair back, the taste of brine and something else, something metallic, like old blood on your tongue. The symbols on the altar, the hushed reverence of the island's guardians, the raw, untamed energy that pulsed through the very stones, it all replays in your mind. Kaleidoscope of disturbing images. You had expected to face warriors, to test your mettle in the heat of battle. Expected to confront the primal forces that slumbered beneath the earth. The gods, or whatever entities dwelled in that sacred grove, had shown you something, and the memory gnaws at you, a persistent ache. Jorn's voice, rough with exhaustion and unspoken questions, cuts through your reverie. He stopped rowing. On you, Ragnar too turns, his eyes mirroring Jorn's unease. The crew, sensing the shift in atmosphere, have fallen silent, chatter replaced by a watchful quiet. They look to you, their chieftain, for reassurance, for an explanation that you cannot, conscience, provide. We are safe, you say, your voice deliberately steady. The raid is over. You force a smile over the turmoil within. A wise decision to withdraw, wouldn't you agree? That place were unwelcoming. You try to inject a note of casual dismissal into your tone. Feel like ash in your mouth. Ragnar grunts, a sound that could be assent or skepticism, is one way to put it. He mutters, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. I've seen fierce warriors fray, never felt the air itself crackle with such power. It was as if the very earth was breathing. B. John nods, his expression grim. Those carvings, I've seen nothing like them. And the silence. It wasn't the silence of an empty place holding its breath. He shivers despite the warmth of the sun. I'm glad to be back on the water, Frey Island. It felt wrong. Wrong. Perhaps for those who do not understand, you replied, the words surprising even yourself. You, Frey, the pragmatic warrior, the one who believed in the strength of steel and the courage of men, were speaking of understanding ancient powers. The island had awakened something within you that warred with your ingrained caution. And what is there to understand, Frey? Ragnar asks, his voice sharpening. To claim spoils, not to commune with spirits. We found no gold, no slaves, only fear. Fear is a potent weapon, you say, turning to face him fully. But knowledge is more potent still. We were meant to raid.
Yes.
But perhaps fate has offered us a different kind of prize. You pause, choosing your words carefully. That place, the power there, it's unlike anything we've encountered. It's not something to be conquered with a sword. Understood. Dorbay, Jorn glances at Ragnar, then back at you. Understood how Frey, we are warriors, priests, yet, you say, your gaze sweeping across the faces of your crew, filled with a mixture of apprehension and dawning intrigue. We have always sought new lands, new challenges. This is simply a new kind of challenge. The whispers I heard, the visions, they spoke of a heritage, power that predates even the gods we worship. You feel a thrill, a dangerous excitement coursing through you. Could learn what we could achieve if we could harness such things. Ragnar scoffs. Harness them. Frey, as if you've been touched by the madness of that place. Perhaps I have. You concede, a wry smile playing on your lips. This is madness. Then it's a madness that offers more than mere plunder. It offers answers, offers a path to something greater. You look out at the endless expanse of the sea, the grey waves stretching to the horizon. Continue, Ragnar. Our reputation will not falter, but our purpose can evolve. Than just raiders, we can become seekers, we can become enlightened. But Bjorn shifts uncomfortably. Enlightened. Men need glory, they need spoils, need riddles and whispers from the shadows. Shows. Glory can be found in many forms, Bjorn, you counter. And what greater glory than to unlock the secrets of the world? The people on that island, they guarded their knowledge, their power. For centuries, they were not warriors, but their strength was undeniable. What if we could learn their ways, incorporate their understanding into our own? Ragnar slams his fist against the oar. I don't trust it, Frey. A gilded cage. We are Vikings, Frey. We take what we want. We forge our own destiny with our own hands. Unseen forces. We don't bow, Ragnar. You say, your voice firm. We understand. We adapt. Just lands, but ignorance. This is not about bowing, it's about growing. The world is changing. We don't change with it. We will be left behind. The old ways of plunder will eventually lead us to ruin. This is a different path, a path to true power. You see a flicker of interest in Ragnar's eyes, despite his protestations. He's a warrior, yes, but he's also ambitious. The idea of a new, unexploited source of power would appeal to his pride, frightens him. Bjorn, ever the loyal follower, watches you, his expression a mixture of respect and concern. He trusts your judgment even when it leads you down paths he doesn't fully comprehend. So, what now? Frey, Bjorn asks, his voice softer this time. We sail back to our village. We tell the others of our fruitless raid. No, you say, conviction. We don't speak of a fruitless raid. We speak of a reconnaissance, a discovery. We found a place of great power, a place that holds ancient secrets. We tell them that their chieftain has a new mission. You turn your gaze back to the sea, the distant shores of home beckoning. Return to that island, but not with weapons drawn for conquest. We will return with questions, with respect, willingness to learn. I will go alone, if I must, to parley with those guardians, to seek their wisdom. Ragnar scoffs again. You'll be killed, Frey. They'll see you as an intruder. Tai, perhaps you admit. But if I do not try, then we will never know. And if I succeed, if I can unlock even a fraction of what that place holds, worth more than all the silver in Francia, you meet Ragnar's challenging gaze. Are you with me on this, Ragnar? Or will you remain a warrior of the old ways, content with the spoils of battle? Ragnar hesitates, his jaw tight. He looks at Bjorn. The silence stretches, punctuated only by the rush of the waves against the hull. Finally, he lets out a long breath. I don't understand this, Frey. Not at all. But you are the chieftain. If you say we seek knowledge, then we seek knowledge. Leads to disaster. Then we face it together. You finish for him, a genuine smile finally gracing your lips. Between you, forged in countless battles, is stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. You know Ragnar will follow. Bjorn, ever the pragmatist, nods his assent. A silent promise of support is filled with a different kind of tension, not the anticipation of battle, but the quiet hum of unspoken possibilities. You spend hours poring over the crude sketches you made of the symbols, trying to decipher their meaning. Recall the exact intonation of the chants you overheard. The more you think about it, the more convinced you become that this is not just a matter of personal curiosity, but a potential turning point for your people. The raids for survival and prosperity were always reactive. This felt proactive, seize control of your destiny in a way that transcended mere conquest. The familiar coastline of your homeland appears on the horizon. A sense of both relief and trepidation washes over you. You've weathered the storm, both literal and metaphorical, on that mysterious island. But the journey ahead, the path you've chosen, feels far more perilous. The cheers of the villagers as your longship approaches are a welcome sound, a reminder of the life you've built. But as you step onto the familiar sands, you know that you are no longer just Frey, the seasoned warrior, the successful raider. You are Frey the Seeker, the one who glimpsed the abyss and found it held not just darkness, but a strange. The elders gather as you disembark, their weathered faces etched with concern. They've heard whispers of the failed raid, silence on your return. Frey, Elder Thora begins, her voice raspy with age. What happened on that island? The scouts reported no engagement, but your return is subdued. You stand before them, of your newfound knowledge pressing down on you. You cannot simply dismiss their concerns, fully explain the profound shift that has occurred within you. We found no easy spoils, Elder Thora. You begin, choosing your words with deliberate care. The inhabitants of that island are not easily overcome by brute force. A different kind of strength, one rooted in the earth, traditions. A murmur ripples through the gathered villagers. Ancient traditions. Elder Hrolf, his beard white as snow, can grunting, but the asks, his eyes sharp. What manner of traditions? They guard their ways, you say, gesturing to your men. Stand silently behind you, their expressions mirroring your own newfound seriousness. Their power lies not in the clang of steel, whispers and symbols. They have a connection to the land, to the very essence of life that we have long forgotten. Ragnar, instrument, pipes up. They have no gold, no slaves, a wasted journey. You fix Ragnar with a stern look. Turn back to the elders, your voice gaining a quiet authority. A wasted journey for those who seek only material wealth, Ragnar. Seek understanding for those who wish to secure the future of our people. This journey has opened a new path. You take a deep breath. I have seen a power on that island, a knowledge that could make us stronger, wiser. It is a power that is not to be feared, and I intend to learn it. And Elder Thora's eyes, ancient and knowing, bore into yours. You speak of magic. I speak of what I saw. Elder, you reply. I saw a people who live in harmony with forces we barely comprehend, that is not dependent on the blood of others, but on the wisdom of the ages. Our raids, our constant struggle for survival, it is a hard life. But perhaps there are other ways. The elders exchange glances, faces a mixture of skepticism and dawning curiosity. The concept of a peaceful acquisition of power, solely defined by violence, is alien to them, yet the conviction in your voice is undeniable. To that place, Elder Hrolf asks, his tone cautious. You offer them in exchange for their secrets. Respect. You answer without hesitation, a willingness to share our own knowledge, our own ways of life. We are not conquerors in this endeavor, but students. Learn their language, their customs, their understanding of the natural world, and perhaps, in time, Bees Jawn steps forward, his voice resonating with quiet strength. Frey speaks the truth. I saw the power of that place. It was formidable. But it was not born of malice. There is something there to be understood. Us all. The villagers look at you, at your loyal men, at the conviction in your eyes. The idea is radical, but it also holds a promise, a glimmer of hope for a future that doesn't always involve the grim necessities of war and plunder. You have taken them on raids, you have led them to victory, and now you are asking them to trust you on a journey of a different kind, the heart of the unknown. The hunt for glory has ended, but the hunt for knowledge has just begun. And you feel, with an unshakable certainty, that this new path, though fraught with peril, is the one you were meant to walk. The whispers of the island still echo in your mind, no longer a source of fear, a siren song calling you towards a destiny far grander than you had ever imagined. The murmurs in the assembly hall, a cacophony of doubt and fear, now shifted. A new kind of energy pulsed through the gathered villagers, curiosity mixed with the ingrained wariness of the unknown. John's words, simple and direct, through the lingering anxieties, their honesty a powerful bomb. He had seen what you had seen, felt the same unnerving pull. Endorsement was a weight lifted from your shoulders. The villagers looked at you with the familiar lines of hardship and resilience, but beneath the accustomed stoicism, a spark of something new flickered. It wasn't the fierce glint of battlelust, but a softer, more thoughtful light. As a leader, a shield against the storm, a hand that guided them through the blood and chaos of raids. Now, you were asking them to follow you not into the fray, but into the quiet, the mysterious, dangerous embrace of understanding, the whispers of the island, the unsettling stillness you had witnessed. These were not the usual spoils of conquest, the tangible rewards of a successful raid. This was something different, something that touched upon the ancient, the spiritual, the very fabric of the world as they knew it. Glory, the adrenaline, fueled pursuit of gold and slaves, the familiar rhythm of survival that had defined your lives for so long, felt distant, almost anachronistic in this moment. A new hunt had begun, not for the flesh of enemies. Knowledge hidden within the heart of that peculiar island, and you, Frey, felt an unshakable certainty settle within you, a deep-seated conviction that this was not a detour, but the very path you were meant to tread. The echoes of the island's silent song, a harbinger of dread, now resonated as a powerful siren call, drawing you towards a destiny far grander, far more profound. The simple, brutal existence of a Viking warrior. You stepped forward, your gaze sweeping across the faces in the hall. Wood smoke and stale, all hung heavy in the air, a familiar perfume of home. But tonight seemed tinged with the strange ozone, like scent that still clung to your worn leather tunic from your time on the island. Scent that spoke of power, of forces unseen, of a world beyond the ordinary. We have always looked to the west. You began, your voice steady, resonating with the conviction that had carried you through countless battles. We have taken what we needed, defended what was ours. But what if there is more to take than just gold and grain? What if there is knowledge that can make us stronger, not just in battle, but in our lives, in our futures? A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Old Aish Jalmar, sea foam and his eyes as sharp as a raven's, grunted from his place near the hearth. Knowledge, Frey. Can an island that spits out lightning bolts and makes men forget their own names offer us? His voice, with age, still carried the authority of a veteran warrior, a man who had seen more winters than you had summers. his gaze unflinching. It offers us a chance, Jalmar, a chance to understand what we fear, to turn our fear into strength. It is not a demon's lair. It is a place of power, and power can be understood. It can be wielded. We approach it with respect, not with the axe. Astrid, her braid the color of spun moonlight, stepped forward, resting on the hilt of her seeks. Her gaze was steady, her expression unreadable. You speak of understanding, Frey. Who went with you? They are not scholars, they are warriors. What do you expect them to do on this island? Sing sagas to the stones. A faint smile touched your lips. They will do what they do best, Astrid. They will observe. And if there is danger, they will defend themselves. But this time, the defense will be guided by curiosity, not by blind rage. As Bairn and his men, they will go with me. They have seen the power, and they have not been broken by it, awakened by it. You gestured to Jorn, who stood stoically at your side, his presence a silent testament to your words. The villagers continued to regard you, their faces a tapestry of emotions, skepticism, hope, seated loyalty that had been forged in the crucible of shared hardship. You knew this was a gamble, a radical departure from everything they understood about the Viking way of life. War and plunder were the currency of their existence. Brutal reality that had sustained them for generations. This new path, this quest for understanding, was uncharted territory. Saxons, the Franks, the Picts. You continued, your voice rising, carrying the weight of your conviction, proven our strength on countless battlefields. But the greatest battles are not always fought with steel. Sometimes the greatest victories are won within ourselves by conquering our own ignorance, our own fear. Leif, younger warrior with a restless spirit, spoke up, his voice tinged with a familiar eagerness. But Frey, what if it is a demon's lair? Whispers are warnings, not invitations. You looked at life, at the uncertainty in his young eyes, felt a surge of empathy. He was like you had been eager for glory, for the thrill of the fight, but perhaps, just perhaps, grunting, but ready for something more. And what if it is not? What if it is a gift, a power that we have been too afraid to grasp? Unless we go, we cannot understand unless we seek. You paused, letting your words settle. I will not force any man to come with me. But those who choose to follow me to this island, they will not be seeking plunder, seeking knowledge. They will be seeking a new way. A silence fell over the hall, a pregnant pause filled with the unspoken thoughts of every man and woman present. You could feel the weight of their decision, held in anticipation. You had laid bare your vision, your newfound purpose, and now the choice was theirs. Led them through the storm, through the darkness, and now you were asking them to trust you in a different kind of journey, beyond the familiar shores of their world. Then a single voice, clear and resonant, cut through the silence. It was Thorin, burly warrior known for his quiet strength and unwavering loyalty. I will go, Frey. You have never led us astray. A ripple of approval went through the crowd. Thorin's support was a significant endorsement. Then, voice and another. Jorn's men, their faces set with a quiet determination, nodded in agreement. Slowly, hesitantly at first, with growing confidence, more villagers stepped forward. You saw faces you knew, men you had fought alongside, men who had trusted you with their lives on the battlefield, now stepping forward to trust you with their curiosity, something more. Astrid watched the proceedings, her expression softening slightly. She saw the conviction in your eyes, desire for something beyond the cycle of violence. Perhaps, she thought, perhaps this was not madness, but a new kind of courage. The old warrior remained seated, his gaze fixed on the fire. He had seen too much bloodshed, too much loss, embrace such a radical idea. But even he, you noticed, had a flicker of something akin to respect in his ancient eyes. As the assembly began to disperse, the air in the hall felt different. Familiar scent of wood smoke and all seemed to carry a new undertone, a hint of anticipation of a journey about to begin. The path ahead would be fraught with peril, with the unknown challenges of an island that defied explanation. But you also knew shakable certainty that you were no longer just Frey, the club-wielding warrior. You were Frey, the seeker of knowledge, the leader of a new kind of expedition, one that dared to look beyond the edge of the world, understanding in the very heart of the mystery. The salt spray might sting your face, no longer a reminder of the harshness of the sea, but of the vastness of possibility that lay before you. The longship's timbers, once a sound of departure for raids into the uncharted depths of curiosity. The next morning, the longship, the SC Serpent, was being readied. Boisterous energy of departure was present, but it was tempered with a new kind of quiet focus. The oars were being checked, the sail being mended, the provisions being loaded, all the familiar rituals of setting sail. Yet, as you oversaw the preparations, distinct shift in the atmosphere. This was not the grim determination of men preparing for battle. Anticipation of explorers embarking on a perilous yet exciting quest. Consisted of 20 of your most trusted warriors, seen you through the darkest of times, and who now followed you into this new dawn. Bjorn stood by your side, his presence a reassuring anchor. Thorin, his broad shoulders squared, was directing the loading of supplies with his usual quiet efficiency. His initial apprehension, seemingly replaced by a keen curiosity, was eagerly inspecting the rigging, a palpable force. Astrid, surprisingly, had declared her intention to join the expedition. You had not expected it, and her decision had brought a flicker of surprise and a quiet satisfaction to your heart. She was a skilled healer, presence would be invaluable. More than that, her sharp mind and keen observation would be a valuable asset on this journey into the unknown. Are you sure about this? You had asked her the previous evening, as the assembly hall had emptied and the murmurs of agreement had faded. As she had met your gaze, her eyes, the colour of a stormy sea, holding a resolute fire, just made of flesh and blood and iron fray. There are other forces, other ways of being. If this island holds secrets, a place that demands to be understood, not just feared. And if there is danger, skills as a healer will be needed. She had offered a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Besides, since I have seen anything truly new, now as the first rays of dawn painted the sky with hues of rose and gold, already aboard, her medical supplies being carefully stowed in the hold, the air was crisp and cool. Sharp tang of the sea and the faint, lingering scent of the island that still clung to you. It was a scent that you realized had become a part of you, a constant reminder of the mystery you were pursuing. As you stepped onto the deck of the SC Serpent, the familiar wood groaning beneath your feet, you felt a surge of anticipation mixed with a healthy dose of trepidation. The villagers who were not part of the expedition watched from the shore, their faces a mixture of awe and concern, had entrusted you with their hopes, and now it was up to you to prove them right. Bjorn clapped you on the shoulder, his grip firm. Frey, you nodded, taking a deep breath of the salty air. As I'll ever be, Bjorn. Let's see what this island has to teach us. The anchor was raised, the oars dipped into the water with a rhythmic splash. Sea Serpent began to move, gliding away from the familiar shores of your village. The coastline, with its thatched roofs and smoking hearths, receded into the distance, a symbol of the life you were leaving behind, at least for a time. Go, a knot of emotion tightening in your chest. This was a departure unlike any other. You were not leaving to raid, but to learn to understand. As you sailed further out, the open sea stretched before you, an endless expanse of blue. The sun climbed higher, its warmth a welcome sensation on your skin. The rhythmic pull of the oars, the creak of the timbers, snap of the sail in the wind, these were the sounds of your world, the comforting constants that had always guided you. But today carry a new significance, a prelude to the unknown. Hours passed, the coastline disappeared entirely, replaced by the vast. The sea, usually a familiar friend, now felt like a vast, indifferent entity, further and further from the known world. You stood at the prow, your gaze fixed on the direction of the mysterious island, whispers of its power still echoing in your mind. They were no longer whispers of fear, but the first notes of a complex melody, a challenge to your understanding, a promise of revelation. The journey had truly begun, undeniable pull of destiny guiding you towards an encounter that would redefine not just your life, perhaps the very essence of what it meant to be a Viking. The hunt for glory was over. The hunt for knowledge had begun. The island waited, a silent, enigmatic sentinel on the edge of the world. The sun, now directly overhead, an intensity that felt both oppressive and invigorating. The salt spray, carried by the wind, kissed your face, reminder of the vastness of the sea surrounding you. The rhythmic creak of the longship, the groan of the mast, thrum of the waves against the hull, these were the sounds that had become your world. You gripped the tiller, your gaze fixed on the distant horizon. The whispers of the island, once a mere rumor, now felt like a tangible presence, a magnetic pull drawing you ever onward. Hours bled into one another, marked only by the slow progression of the sun across the sky. The comforting coastline of your homeland had long since vanished, replaced by an endless expanse of shimmering blue. The sea, bull companion, now seemed to hold an air of mystery, its depths concealing secrets you were determined to uncover. You were no longer Frey, the hunter of glory, but Frey, the seeker of knowledge, quest that promised to redefine your understanding of the world. Jorn, your trusted shield brother, stood beside you, face etched with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He too felt the weight of the unknown, spoken questions hanging heavy in the salty air. "The wind is fair, Frey," he said, low rumble against the roar of the waves. "But this silence, it unnerves me." You nodded, leaving the horizon. "Silence often precedes great change, Jorn. We sail towards the edge of our knowledge, as a place that breeds both fear and wonder." You shifted your weight, feeling the familiar ache in your shoulders from hours of steering. The raw power of the sea, its untamed fury, and its serene beauty was a constant paradox, much like the whispers of the island itself. As the day wore on, the sky began to blush with the fiery hues of sunset. Silken clouds, painted in shades of crimson and gold, stretched across the heavens, the turbulent emotions churning within you. The island, you knew, was close, a primal instinct honed by years of survival, a subtle shift in the wind, a strange luminescence on the water. These were the signs that spoke of its proximity. Segrid, your keen-eyed sister, pointed towards the west. A faint, ethereal glow shimmered on the horizon. In the deepening twilight, it was unlike any light you had ever seen. A soft seemed to emanate from the very heart of the sea. "The Isle of Whispers." Jorn breathed, his voice filled with awe, spoke of this light. Don, a shiver, not of cold but of anticipation, traced its way down your spine. The island was real. The whispers were true. All the years of doubt, the scorn of the elders, uncertainty, it all faded in the face of this undeniable reality. You felt a surge of exhilaration, potent cocktail of courage and trepidation. As you drew closer, the glow intensified. The silhouette of an island, shrouded in mist. Jagged cliffs rose from the churning sea, their peaks lost in the swirling vapors. Twisted trees, their branches gnarled and skeletal, clung to the precarious slopes, their forms distorted by the ethereal light. Heavy, charged with an unseen energy, and the rhythmic pulse of the waves seemed to synchronize with the beating of your own heart. You guided the longship towards a narrow cove, visible landing point. The water here was unnaturally still, the mist clinging to the surface like a shroud. Silence was profound, broken only by the gentle lapping of water against the hull and the distant cry of unseen seabirds. Silence that spoke volumes, a prelude to a reckoning. "We anchor here," you declared, your voice ringing with newfound authority. "Shore with caution. Remember what the whispers told us. This place is not like other lands." Jorn and Sigrid exchanged glances, reflecting the same mixture of resolve and unease. You knew they trusted you. Weight of this unknown was a heavy burden for them to bear as well. You were their leader, their guide. The responsibility rested squarely on your shoulders. As you lowered the anchor, the chain rattled against the unseen seabed, the sound unnervingly loud in the pervasive stillness. The mist swirled around the longship, obscuring the view of the shore. Isolation and vulnerability. You felt a prickle of unease. Primal whispered of dangers lurking just beyond the veil of mist. You gathered your crew, your voice low and steady. Know what awaits us on this island. It may hold great wisdom, or it may hold only peril. We go together as one, and trust your instincts. This is not a raid for plunder, but a journey into the heart of mystery. With that, you lowered the single sturdy boat that you had brought with you. The water, as you stepped into it, was colder than you expected. A stark contrast to the warmth of the day. The oars dipped into the glassy surface, creating ripples that disturbed the unnatural stillness. The longship, a symbol of your departure, now felt a world away. Distant memory as you rowed towards the enigmatic shore. The mist seemed to thicken as you approached. The damp embrace. The air grew colder, and a faint, earthy scent mingled with something else. Strangely sweet and intoxicating, filled your nostrils. You strained your eyes, trying to pierce the opaque veil. It's relentless, a living entity determined to conceal its secrets. Suddenly, a low, resonant hum vibrated through the water, a sound that seemed to originate from the very core of the island. It was a deep, guttural sound, both beautiful and unsettling. Like the song of a giant, slumbering beast, the boat trembled beneath your feet and the oars seemed to vibrate in your hands. Sigrid whispered, her voice barely audible. "I do not know." You replied, your own voice tinged with a tremor of awe. Ancient. As you reached the shore, the mist thinned slightly, revealing a narrow, rocky beach. The stones were smooth and black, polished by the ceaseless caress of the waves. The twisted trees, their bark like weathered leather, loomed over the beach, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The faint glow you had seen earlier now seemed to emanate from the very soil beneath your feet, a soft that illuminated the strange, alien landscape. You stepped out of the boat, your boots crunching on the black pebbles. The ground felt strangely soft, almost yielding, as if you were treading on moss that had grown for centuries. thick with the intoxicating scent now more pronounced, and you felt a slight dizziness, a disorienting sensation that made it difficult to focus. Jorn followed, his hand resting on the hilt of his axe, scanning the surroundings with a warrior's vigilance. Sigrid, ever the pragmatist, carried a small pouch of herbs and bandages. Sharp and observant, the rest of your small crew, a handful of your most trusted warriors, fanned out behind you, a mixture of grim determination and wary curiosity. You took a deep breath, trying to clear your head. Whispers of the island had spoken of its power, of its ability to both enlighten and ensnare. You knew, a certainty that resonated deep within your bones, that this journey would test you in ways you had never imagined. Glory was indeed over. The hunt for knowledge had truly begun, and the Isle of Whispers was about to reveal its secrets. Whether you were ready or not, you turned to your companions, a determined glint in your eyes. We move inland. Stay together. Whatever you see, whatever you do, not let it sway you from our purpose. As you took your first steps into the heart of the mist-shrouded island, the hum intensified, vibrating through your very being. The ground beneath your feet seemed to pulse with a life of its own, and the sweet grew stronger, beckoning you deeper into the unknown. The whispers, no longer just sounds in your mind, seemed to manifest as fleeting images, as half-heard voices carried on the wind, powers and truths that lay beyond the comprehension of ordinary men. You felt a profound sense of stepping across a threshold, leaving behind the world you knew for one that existed on the very fringes of reality. The air itself seemed to thicken, growing with an ancient magic, a palpable force that pressed in on you from all sides. The faint glow, which had seemed so distant from the ship, now permeated the very air, casting long, distorted shadows from the twisted trees. Leaves, every drip of moisture from unseen branches, seemed amplified, charged with an otherworldly significance. The eyes of the island upon you, a silent, ancient gaze that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless ages, that held both immense power and an unsettling neutrality. You were an intruder, a trespasser, but also, perhaps, a supplicant. Ever the sentinel paused, his head cocked. "Frey," he murmured, his voice tight. The shadows, they're moving. You followed his gaze. Indeed, the shadows cast by the skeletal trees seemed to wreathe and stretch, and contracting in a way that defied the steady, diffused light. They weren't merely shadows, possess a life of their own, shifting and swirling like currents in a dark, unseen river. A primal unease began to settle in your gut, a cold dread that warred with the burning curiosity that had driven you this far. You said, trying to keep your voice steady, "It plays tricks on the eyes, on the mind. Remember what we came for. Focus." Sigrid, who had been carefully examining a patch of strange, phosphorescent moss growing on a rock, suddenly gasped. She said, her voice hushed with wonder. She held out a small, crystalline shard that she had carefully extracted from the moss. It pulsed with a faint inner light, mirroring the glow of the island itself. As you leaned closer, you could see intricate patterns etched within the crystal, patterns that seemed to shift and reform as you watched. "Nothing I've ever seen," Jorn said, his usual gruff demeanor softened by a sense of awe. "What is this place?" You took the shard from Sigrid, feeling a strange warmth emanating from it. The patterns within seemed to whisper to your mind, but in a series of impressions of images, vast, celestial bodies, swirling nebulae, the birth and death of stars, overwhelming, a glimpse into a cosmic tapestry far grander and more ancient than anything you had ever conceived. "It's a repository," you stammered, the words feeling inadequate to describe the immensity of what you were experiencing. Place where knowledge is preserved, not in books but in the very fabric of existence. As you spoke, hum of the island seemed to deepen, to respond to your words. The ground beneath your feet vibrated more intensely, began to swirl with renewed vigor, creating phantom shapes that flickered at the edges of your vision. The sweet scent in the air became almost cloying, and you felt a growing pressure behind your eyes. Something was trying to force its way into your consciousness. We need to find the source of this, you said, your voice gaining strength. The whispers spoke of a central point where the island's power is concentrated. You began to move inland, a barely discernible path that wound between the gnarled trees. The terrain was treacherous, the ground uneven, made visibility a constant challenge. Yet there was a sense of direction, an innate pull that guided your steps. The island itself was leading you deeper into its embrace. Hours passed by the subtle shifts in the island's ambient hum and the increasingly vivid sensory distortions. Color that had no source, heard melodies that seemed to weave themselves into the very air you breathe. Constant, subtle pressure against your mind, as if the island was probing your thoughts, testing your resolve. Bjorn, pragmatist, began to grow restless. Frey, this is unnerving. We've been wandering for what feels like an age. We've seen nothing but mist and twisted trees. Are you sure this is the right way? The whispers, they were clear. You insisted, though a seed of doubt was beginning to sprout in your own mind. The intoxicating scent, the disorienting illusions, they were starting to wear on your nerves, dulling your senses and making it harder to maintain your focus. Remained calm, her gaze fixed on the ground. Wait, she said, her voice sharp. She pointed to a series of faint markings etched into the bark of a particularly ancient-looking tree. They were symbols, any runes you had ever seen, but they resonated with a strange familiarity, as if they were etched not on the bark, but on your very soul. As you traced the symbols with your finger, a jolt of energy coursed through you. Around you seemed to sharpen, the mist receding slightly, revealing a clearing bathed in the island's ethereal glow. Center of the clearing stood a colossal stone, its surface covered in the same intricate, pulsating patterns as the crystal shard. Was loudest here, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from the stone itself. As you approached, the stone began to shift and flow, coalescing into images, into stories. You saw visions of your ancestors, faces etched with wisdom and power, their eyes burning with an ancient light. You saw the creation of the world, stars, the dance of the elements. And then you saw yourself standing before this very stone, not as a Viking warrior, as something more, something different. The pressure in your mind intensified, becoming almost unbearable, as if the stone was trying to imprint itself upon your very consciousness, to overwrite your own identity with a new one. You gasped, stumbling back, the visions overwhelming you. Frey, Bjorn cried out, rushing to your side, his hand on your shoulder. You shook your head, fog that had descended upon your mind. The intoxicating scent was now almost suffocating, a strange sense of detachment, as if you were watching yourself from a distance. The whispers were no longer whispers, roaring chorus, a symphony of knowledge and power that threatened to consume you whole. To change me, you managed to choke out, your voice weak. It wants to make me something else. As Sigrid, her face pale, clutched the crystal shard tightly. This place is not merely a repository of knowledge, Frey. It is a crucible. It tests and transforms. You looked at the colossal stone, its pulsating patterns now a blinding light. You understood now. The whispers had not been a promise of revelation, but a warning. This was not a hunt for knowledge, it was a battle for your very soul, offered power, enlightenment, but at a price: the shedding of your old self, the embrace of a new, alien consciousness, a surge of defiance, a fierce protectiveness for the Frey you knew, the Frey who had sailed these seas, fought these battles. Destiny. You would not be a pawn, a vessel for some ancient, unknown entity. We leave, you declared, gaining its strength, though it was strained. Now, we have seen enough. It is too dangerous. Bjorn nodded grimly, his hand never leaving your shoulder. Sigrid, though her eyes still held a spark of wonder, understood the gravity of your decision. The allure of the island's power was immense, was far too great. As you turned to retrace your steps, the hum of the island seemed to shift, to take on a more menacing tone. The shadows writhed with renewed ferocity, and the ground beneath your feet began to tremble. The island, it seemed, let you go. The test was not over. It had merely entered a new, more dangerous phase. The journey back to the ship you suspected would be far more perilous than the journey in. The Isle of Whispers had revealed its secrets, also revealed its teeth. The tremor beneath your feet intensified, vibration but a violent lurch that sent loose stones skittering down the embankment. The air, the scent of brine and damp earth, now carried a new, acrid undertone, the smell of something ancient and disturbed. John's grip tightened, his knuckles white against your tunic, his breath a ragged whisper against your ear, spoke of a primal fear you mirrored deep within your gut. The island was no longer a passive observer, it was an active, malevolent force. The shadows, which had seemed merely an extension of the twilight, now coalesced, deepening into tangible that seemed to mock your every move. They wreathed with a life of their own, blurring and reforming like smoke caught in a gale. It is as the elders foretold. Bjorn rumbled, his voice strained. The island does not yield its power freely. It tests those who seek to claim it. He looked not at you, that clawed at the bruised sky, as if expecting an answer from the very stone. Sigrid, of grim resolve, hefted her axe, its polished steel glinting dully in the fading light. Her eyes, curiosity, were now narrowed, scanning the encroaching darkness. That had captivated her earlier was replaced by a hard, edged pragmatism, the warrior's instinct for survival kicking in. You understood the whispers, the visions, the allure of the island's raw, untamed energy. It had all been a lure, a siren song designed to ensnare the unwary, and you, in your youthful hubris, had almost fallen prey to it. The cost, the thought of the void that would swallow you whole, the extinguishing of your very essence, was a chilling counterpoint to the intoxicating power you had momentarily touched. It was a power that belonged to the earth, spirits that dwelled within, not to mortals. We must leave, you stated, your voice firm, though a tremor ran through it. Before it traps us entirely. The ground gave another violent shudder, and a low growl seemed to emanate from the very core of the island. The trees around you, gnarled and ancient, groaned as if in pain, branches thrashing against the windless air. It was a sound that spoke of aeons of slumber disturbed, that promised only destruction. Bjorn nodded, his gaze unwavering. Agreed, the path back to the longship will be no easy one. Will try to break us, to turn us against each other. He glanced at Sigrid, silent acknowledgement of the unspoken pact between you. You were a unit, bound by shared peril and a common goal: survival. Initial you'd felt towards the island's mysterious power had evaporated. by a desperate need to escape its suffocating embrace. As you began to descend, the familiar path seemed to have shifted, rocks and roots reconfigured by the island's displeasure. The shadows deepened, clinging to you like a shroud. The sound of your footsteps. The air grew colder, not with the chill of the sea, but with a deep, seeped into your bones. Each step was a gamble, a test of your footing, and your nerve was actively resisting your departure, throwing obstacles in your path with an unseen hand. Suddenly, a section of the path ahead crumbled, a cascade of earth and stone tumbling into the unseen depths below. You instinctively recoiled, self against the rough bark of a nearby tree. Bjorn, ever vigilant, had already pushed Sigrid behind him, his axe held ready. Warning, he grunted, his eyes scanning the precipice. Not want us to leave. You felt a prickle of unease on the back of your neck. This was more than just a treacherous landscape. It's an active, intelligent hostility. You remembered the tales of the sea, gods of the earth, spirits that predated even the oldest sagas. Had you stumbled into a place where such powers still held sway? A fresh wave of dread through you. We need to find another way, Sigrid said, her voice tight. She pointed to a narrow crevice in the rock face, barely wide enough for a man to squeeze through, that leads down to the lower slopes. Bjorn examined it, his brow furrowed. It is a tight fit. What lies within? We don't know what lies on this path either, you countered, your voice rising slightly with urgency. The growling sound from the island seemed to intensify, a low thrumming that vibrated in your very teeth. Afford to hesitate. With a shared nod, you moved towards the crevice. Bjorn went first, brushing against the rough stone. He paused, then beckoned for you and Sigrid to follow. The passage was claustrophobic and stagnant, carrying the faint, metallic tang of something unpleasant. Here, the drip of water somewhere in the darkness, a steady, maddening rhythm. The stone walls felt slick and cold beneath your questing fingers. As you navigated the narrow passage, the sounds of the island seemed to recede, replaced by the rasp of your own breathing, and the scraping of your gear against the rock. Was a temporary respite, you knew, but one that allowed your thoughts to race. What would happen if you failed to escape? Would you be consumed by the island, your essence absorbed into its ancient, unknowable consciousness? The thought was a chilling one, threatened to swallow your very will to survive. Emerging from the crevice was like being born anew, into a world even more hostile than before. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and deep violet. The island was now cloaked in a profound darkness, punctuated only by the faint, phosphorescent glow of strange fungi clinging to the ancient trees. The wind had died down, leaving an unnerving stillness, the distant, mournful cry of a seabird. The shore, Bjorn said, pointing towards a faint glimmer of moonlight on the water, still some distance. As you moved across the uneven terrain, the ground beneath your feet began to squirm. Solid earth, you knew, but something that felt disturbingly alive. It was as if the very soil was a living creature, and writhing in its slumber, you stumbled, your foot sinking into a patch of what looked like moss, but felt like a spongy, yielding flesh. A shriek escaped your lips as you pulled your leg free, the sensation of being consumed by the ground itself, sending a wave of revulsion through you. Hells was that, Sigrid exclaimed, her voice sharp with alarm. The island, Bjorn said, his voice grim. It is alive. It is hungry. You could feel it now, a palpable energy radiating from the ground, from the trees, from the very air. The invigorating power you had glimpsed earlier, but a raw, predatory hunger. The whispers returned. No longer enticing promises of power, but guttural snarls of possessiveness. They seem to coil around your mind, ensnare you in a web of fear and despair. You fought against it, focusing on the image of your ship, of the open sea, of home, to the memories of warmth, of laughter, of the familiar faces of your kin, were the anchors that kept you from being swept away by the island's insidious influence. You drew strength from the thought of your crew, waiting for your return, their lives depending on your success. As you pressed onward, the phosphorescent fungi began to pulse with a brighter, more insistent light. The squirming ground became more pronounced, mossy patches erupting in a silent, wraithing dance. You heard a rustling in the undergrowth, a sound too heavy for any small creature. His stance widening, his eyes fixed on the dark shapes moving amongst the trees. "What is it?" Sigrid whispered, gripping the shaft of her axe. "Something the island has created," John replied, his voice a low growl. "Or something it has awakened." A hulking shape detached itself from the shadows, its form indistinct in the gloom. With a loping gait, its limbs seeming too long, too disjointed. A low, chittering sound emanated from it, a sound that scraped against your nerves. It was a predator, and you were its prey. "To me," John roared through the unnatural stillness. He charged forward, his axe a blur of steel against the encroaching darkness. To his flank, her own weapon ready. You hesitated for only a fraction of a second, instinct for self-preservation warring with the need to stand with your companions. Then, drawing your own dagger, you joined the fray, return hanging precariously in the balance. The Isle of Whispers had shown its true face, and it was a face of primal. The journey back to the ship had become a desperate flight for survival, with the island itself hunting you. Feel its malevolence pressing in, its ancient power channeled into the monstrous forms that now emerged from the shadows. On ensuring you never left its cursed soil, you gripped your dagger, leather of its hilt a familiar comfort against your palm, and met the charge of the creature that loomed before you, glowing with an unholy light. The creature's maw gaped, a cavern of jagged teeth, slick with something dark and viscous. A fetid stench, like rotting seaweed, and something farfaller, assaulted your nostrils. You didn't flinch. Terror that had gripped you moments ago had transmuted into a cold, sharp focus. This was the primal struggle for existence, all pretense. Your dagger, the simple iron, a stark contrast to the otherworldly gleam of the beast's eyes, like an extension of your will. You sidestepped the initial lunge, the creature's massive, missing you by a hair's breadth, tearing gouges in the damp earth. Its hide was thick, leathery, seemed to absorb the meager light filtering from the bruised sky. John's battle cry, a guttural roar that seemed to shake the very roots of this accursed island, reached you. He was engaged with another of these abominations, and fury, sacred, nimble and deadly, danced around a third, finding purchase in the soft underbelly of one of the shambling horrors. They fought not with the practiced, almost casual brutality of seasoned warriors, but with a desperate primal ferocity, a testament to the impossible situation you were all in. The island itself seemed to breathe the very air, vibrating with a palpable malice. Your opponent, with limbs that seemed to bend at unnatural angles, recovered from its missed strike with surprising speed. Moved with a disjointed grace, a predator's coiled power, you could hear the rasp of its breath, a wet that sent shivers down your spine. Its eyes, twin embers in the gloom, locked onto yours. There was no intelligence in them, only an ancient, consuming hunger. You were meat, a vessel of warmth and life, to be extinguished and consumed. A sweeping claw with your dagger, the impact jarring your arm to the bone. The steel sang a high as it met the creature's hardened limb. It was a futile gesture, you knew, a whisper against a storm. But it was your whisper, your defiance. You wouldn't fall here, not like this. You saw an opening, a slight imbalance as it overextended its strike. You pivoted, driving the dagger with all your might towards its exposed flank. The blade sank in, not deep enough to inflict a killing blow, elicit a screech of pain, a sound that was more insectile than animal. The creature recoiled, momentarily stunned. This was your chance. You scrambled back, putting distance between yourself and its thrashing claws. The ground beneath you was treacherous and the oozing sap of strange, pale fungi. Every step was a gamble, a test of your footing. Towards Jorn and Sigrid, Jorn had dispatched his attacker, the beast's lifeblood staining the earth, a sickly green. He was already moving to assist Sigrid, his axe cleaving through the neck of her assailant. But more were coming. Periphery of your vision, you saw them emerge from the tangled undergrowth, their forms indistinct but undeniably menacing. Whispers was not giving up its bounty easily.
Frey! To the north! More of them!
Jorn's voice strained with effort, the cacophony of battle. You heard the clang of steel on bone, the wet thud of blows landing. Sigrid grunted in pain, a sound that made your blood run cold. You didn't hesitate. Your dagger was still in your hand, a desperate weapon against these horrors. You sprinted towards the sound of Sigrid's struggle, your heart pounding, a frantic rhythm against your ribs, with the coppery tang of blood, your own and that of the creatures. As you rounded a cluster of gnarled, skeletal trees, with a creature that resembled a massive, bloated spider, its 8 eyes gleaming with predatory intent, one of its segmented limbs, and she was struggling to free herself, her spear held defensively. Jorn was engaged with another, a bipedal monstrosity with a snout like a boar and razor, sharp tusks. You roared, charging forward. The spider creature turned its many eyes towards you, its mandibles clicking ominously. Sigrid's leg, a move that surprised you, and scuttled towards you with unnerving speed. You braced yourself, dagger held ready. Gefren kind of threat, more agile, more insidious.
Get clear, Frey! It's fast!
Sigrid shouted, scrambling to her feet, her injured leg. She held her spear out, but her movements were hampered. You could see the strain on her face, the grim determination. You were now the primary target. The spider creature launched itself at you, a blur of chitin and venom. You dodged, legs scraping against the ground where you'd been standing. You saw an opportunity as it landed, its underside exposed, driving your dagger upwards. The blade found its mark, piercing the soft membrane beneath its abdomen. A thick, viscous fluid gushed out. The creature shrieked, a high-pitched, grating sound that set your teeth on edge, and thrashed wildly. Jorn, having dispatched his own foe, was already moving towards you, his axe dripping.
Shields! A shield wall! They're coming in numbers!
He bellowed. You understood. Alone, you were vulnerable. Together, your limited weaponry, you could at least present a unified front. You pulled your dagger free, the blade coated in the creature's foul ichor. You wiped it on the damp earth, defiance against the overwhelming filth of this place. Sigrid, though limping, was back on her feet, her spear held steady. She panted, her eyes scanning the encroaching darkness. Reached the ship. The spider, creature you had wounded, was still writhing, its movements becoming weaker. Finish it. Jorn was already positioning himself, his broad shield raised. You and Sigrid moved to his flanks. Triangle. The ground vibrated again, a deep, resonant tremor that seemed to emanate from the very core of the island. Creatures were emerging from the shadows, their numbers seemingly endless. They were not intelligent, not in the way you understood intelligence, but they were driven by a singular purpose: to prevent your escape. "Hold fast," John commanded, his voice a rock against the tide of terror. You could feel the heat radiating from his body, the sheer force of his presence a bulwark. You gripped your dagger, its hilt a familiar anchor in the chaos. You were a club, a shield, single, unified point of resistance. The instinct for survival was a powerful current, but it was the bond with your companions, in shared hardship and the grim reality of this moment, that truly anchored you. The first wave hit your makeshift shield wall, resembling a mutated wolf with glowing red eyes, slammed against John's shield. The impact was tremendous. That ran up your arm. You saw Sigrid expertly parry a snapping jaw with her spear point, finding a vulnerable spot behind the ear. You met a smaller, scuttling thing with your dagger, ray against your leather tunic, thankfully finding no purchase on your skin.
"Push them back!"
John roared, laced with the strain of holding the line. You braced yourself, pushing forward, your dagger, a silver flash in the gloom. Were relentless, their attacks a chaotic storm. You felt a sharp jab in your side, and a searing pain followed. See a long, barbed tail protruding from your tunic. One of the spider creatures had managed to strike you. Sigrid cried out, her voice filled with alarm. You gritted your teeth, ignoring the burning agony. There was no time for pain. You twisted your body, wrenching the tail free, and with a desperate lunge, drove your dagger into the creature's eye. It shrieked and stumbled back, its venomous tail thrashing blindly. John, seeing your predicament, surged forward, his axe a blur of motion through the creature's skull. "Are you wounded badly?" he demanded. His eyes, though fierce, held a flicker of concern. "Just a scratch," you lied, your breath coming in ragged gasps. The venom was already starting to work, numbness spreading from the wound. You couldn't let them see you falter. Not now. Not when the ship, your only hope of escape, was still a distant, uncertain goal. "We need to move," Sigrid urged, her gaze fixed on the path ahead. "The longer we stay here, the more of them will find us." She was right. This was not a battle to be won, but a flight to be survived. John nodded, his face grim. Towards the sound of the sea, "Keep the shield wall tight." He began to backpedal, angled to deflect any incoming attacks. You and Sigrid followed. Your movements a coordinated retreat, a desperate dance with death. The air was thick with the stench of death, both yours and theirs. The island itself seemed to press in, ancient, malevolent power, a tangible force. You could hear the creatures hissing and chittering behind you, their pursuit relentless, continued to tremble, a constant reminder of the unnatural full forces at play. You stumbled as you ran, feel heavy and unresponsive. You fought to stay upright, to keep pace with Bjorn and Sigrid. The thought of the ship, of the familiar rocking of the waves, of the open sky was a beacon, a desperate prayer. Bjorn shouted, pointing towards a faint glimmer of light through the trees. The sea, the sound of the waves, once a distant murmur, was now a roaring symphony of hope. But the creatures were closing in. They seemed to sense your desperation, your proximity to escape. A hulking form lunged from the side, aiming for Sigrid. John intercepted it, burying itself deep in its chest. But the distraction was enough. Another creature, a sinewy, scaled thing with a whip-like tail, slammed into you from behind. You were thrown off balance, your dagger skittering across the damp ground. You landed hard, your lungs
"Free!"
Sigrid's cry, was a desperate plea. You saw her turn, her spear raised, was still engaged with the larger beast. You were alone, vulnerable, with the scaled creature looming over you, opening to reveal a tongue flickering like a serpent's. Your vision swam. The venom was taking its toll. You tried to push yourself up, but your limbs refused to obey. This was it. This was how it ended. Then a flash of steel, a guttural roar that was not your own. The scaled creature shrieked a wet, gurgling sound and collapsed beside you. Its body. You looked up, gasping for air. Bujorn stood over you, his axe stained crimson. Grim determination. Sigrid was by his side, her spear ready, her eyes wide with concern. Get up. Jorn commanded, his voice rough.
We can't stop now.
He extended a hand. You grasped it, raw strength in his grip. He pulled you to your feet, and together, the three of you continued your desperate flight towards the sea, the sounds of the island's horrors echoing in your wake. To the ordeal you had endured. The ship was closer now, a dark silhouette against the churning waves. Promise of escape, however fragile, burned brighter than ever in your desperate heart. Whispers had shown you its true nature, and you had survived, but the scars, both visible and unseen, would remain. The journey back was not yet over, and the island's final, desperate attempts to claim you were likely yet to come.